Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Untold. I'm your host, Abdullah AlHendyani. I'm joined by my colleague,
Lujain AlAtheri, and today we're going to talk to someone who pioneered podcasting in Kuwait.
Yeah, basically, podcasting in Kuwait and podcasting locally in general, we owe a lot of thanks to him. And basically, they were the founders and the, podcasters of Chat, which for a lot of people who don't know was the first Kuwaiti podcast.
It's amazing that we had a local podcast back in the day when it wasn't a proper thing. Nowadays, social media has made podcasting very accessible to all kinds of people, but they're the ones who had the idea to make it a local thing.
Yeah, and speaking with him before we roll camera and before we bring him on the stage, he was talking about doing it like 15 years ago. And like 15 years ago, the idea of podcasting, I don't even think it was called podcasting. It was just, basically recording yourself, putting it online. I believe they were calling it online radio or something. So it really goes to the roots of podcasting. And we are going to take a very quick break and we'll come right back with him. And we are back on The Untold. I'd like to first welcome you, Musaad AlHaddad, on joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's wonderful to have you. Musaad, you started podcasting in Kuwait long before anyone else did.
Yeah.
Could you take us back to the very beginning of how Chat came to be?
I always believe that media should be on demand. I didn't find it right that I have to be glued to the TV or the radio to wait for my favorite program to come on. So I started to explore the space of podcasting, and I found it fascinating because I was able to listen to what I want when I wanted it, be it in a car or anywhere. And I really enjoyed it, and I started to dive into a lot of subjects. But I hit a wall when I started to dive into a subject that's more local, and I couldn't find anything that can respond to that. So then the idea came in, why not me doing it? Why not start my own podcast? And that's how the inception of the idea of wanted to do my own show. Of course, there was a lot of challenges. I didn't know how to do it until I met the right person. Shout out to my co-host Ali. He's not with us today, but I'm sure he appreciated the shout out. In any case, I was introduced by him with a friend, through a friend, and we hit it from there. Ali had the technical aspect of things, and I had the idea. And we started very primitive, but it snowballed to what it became.
Yeah. And I love how you said that you started very primitive because, podcasting now in general has become like a big industry, right? There are studios, mics dedicated for podcasts. I mean, this show is basically the grandchild of podcasting. And we were talking before air about your first beginnings, and you were talking about how you actually started recording some of those things within the car. And a lot of people don't know that podcasting started really small like that.
Yeah, we first of all, there was no apps, and we're lucky to have the smartphones. And I remember we have to record in the car because that was the best space where we don't have echoes, so we can have somewhat of a quality recording. When we upload the episode, it was through a blog, so it's actually a website where you upload the audio file within the blog. So it was very primitive in that sense. We didn't have much of editing tools, so we pretty much do it in one shot. And this also influenced how we structured the podcast because we're limited by the tools we have. But yeah, it was a lot of challenge, but it was a lot of fun as well. Yeah.
It's really great that you took the initiative to do something that was lacking in the country. Like how you mentioned, you didn't know where to start because back then, no one had podcasts. Yeah. It wasn't common.
Yeah.
Nowadays, anyone can go on YouTube, go on social media and find tips on how to start a podcast. Sure. And find so many podcasts that they can learn from. What was it that you wanted to do differently with your podcast?
Well, at the time, we believe we have the pulse of the street, of what's going on, what's happening. And there's so much we want to talk about. And I felt this medium is perfect. At the time, there was only radio, where most of the youngsters listen to the radio because they don't want to stay with the TV. They have to drive around. So I thought the podcast is great to say what I wanted to say. And once the idea start to formulate, I start to create a structure of what I want to say. And it started off by having a limit of how long the episode is, because the attention span, and I don't want to bore people, because the idea of listening to two people, you're not seeing them, you're just hearing them. Maybe it's new. We're not professionals, so we tend to switch code between two languages sometime. So we're learning as we went on, and so we had the structure where the episode cannot exceed 13, 14 minutes. I didn't want to say 15 because then that's already a bracket. So we stuck to 13. And the way we tackle the subjects, we had two categories. It's simple and complex. And believe it or not, simple was the hardest to do.
Oh,
Really?
Yes. Because you're taking a very light subject and you're making a 13-minute conversation about it. I'll give you an example. When we buy a loaf of bread, we always skip the first one. We never eat it. Okay?
True.
Why is that? What happened? Where that came from? Why do we skip that one? Why not eat it? So I had to do some homework and find out why. And it turns out to be having that first loaf will help keep the loaf fresh.
yeah.
But we never, we're just doing it by habit. We never know why. And so it took a lot of research for me to find out about these things. Where when I talk about something more complex, like the postal system, it's a lot easy to find information. So that's one of the things, I discovered. And we tend to try to cover all aspects. So when I do my preparation, I tell Ali that, look, I'm going to say this and you're going to counter my argument with that, because I want to include all thoughts. So when you listen, you have someone who voice your opinion. It's like, what about this? So I'll have Ali do that role and I answer him back until we cover all aspects. All of that in 13 minutes max. So that's...
As this is like having an antagonist and protagonist within the debate itself.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned briefly how difficult it was to find simpler topics. So I want to go into that point a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the process like of finding topics to talk about? Like, did you basically talk about everyday life? Did you talk about, international topics, worldwide events? Like, how did the process of selection, what to talk about, comes on?
Well, the focus was definitely local. This is what I was into. Now, I'm into marketing. I'm a marketer. So observing is part of just my being. I always observe. Yeah. And I always spot things that I found, what about that? For example, you go and visit your grandmother, and you spot that she always have henna in her hand. And then you see youngsters, they're not wearing this anymore. Yeah. How come? What happened? Why did it stop? And that, it snowballs in my head. What happened? And then I start to ask, I was like, why you're not, doing this anymore? And she's like, well, I feel old, and then I start to gather perspective, like, what the, young women feel about that, and why the old still wearing, henna and all that. And then I start to formulate a whole idea or subject that's worth talking about. And that's how it came to be. Another topic was some guys shy away from a certain type of cars. They call it like, these are girls' cars, these are boys' cars. So why? What happened? Where that classification came from? And so we start digging in, like, what happened? It turns out that when this car came out, it was more a trend with boys or more trend with girls, and that just carry on, that the car now associated with girls more than boys. And so that's another way to look at it. But definitely the focus was mostly local.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that you took everyday things and found inspiration in them, especially for the Kuwaiti people. It's something that they can truly relate to. I'd also like to ask you about the name of the podcast, Dira Chat. It's a really cool name. How did you come up with it? Is there a story behind it?
Well, we wanted a name that gives more of a general vibe. I don't want it to be specialized. It's interesting to say this because we did have a spin-offs.
Oh, did you?
We have two spin-offs. We have Movie Chat from its title, focus on movies. And we have Dinar Chat, which focus more on like, you know,
Business?
running, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, this is always, yeah, and the vision start to snowball that this maybe become something big where you have several chats, you know, but we wanted to keep Dira Chat as the umbrella that I can talk about anything. So I didn't want a name that forced me to be inside a, you know, small bracket. And I wanted to also associate in that we're being hip and trendy. So whatever is going on right now, we're gonna talk about it. So the name Dira fits all these aspects. It tick all the boxes for us. And yeah, the rest was history. So yeah, yeah.
You know, speaking of history, I think I spent the majority of the last year in high school trying to convince my closest group of friends to start a podcast, because we were so, you know, we could talk for hours. But the one question that always came from them is that, you know, what's the point? You know, because back then there was no money in it. You know, it wasn't popular. There wasn't a lot of ads to be, you know, having on it. There was no incentive to make it. So I think the question for you is that what was the goal of making these podcasts, especially in a time when it wasn't, you know, it was just for the fun of it?
I love sharing information, and my objective was to say what I wanted to say. After, let's say, the boom of the podcast, what we did, I was approached by radio stations, and I didn't join in because I wanted the freedom to say what I want to say, how I want to say it. And so my main objective was to have a channel to say what I think needs to be said. And I had a lot to say. So it wasn't, you know, about making money or even about fame, but it was just about, I want to say what I want to say. I have so much to say. And that was the perfect medium to say that. So we tried, you know, the idea of sponsorship, even though it was new at the time. And even like the companies did not believe in that this can be something. So we were not successful at that, but it was something just to cover, like we wanted something to cover like expense, like we wished to have a, you know, pro mic, you know, or you know, something like that, just to record, you know. But it didn't stop us. However, the absence of the like button did. So yeah.
It's really cool that you thought of all these different ways. Do you think there was a particular episode that sparked your journey into fame or into success?
Well, the episode that I always admire, you know, your episodes like your kids, and there's always a favorite, you know. But I had this episode, it was a vision. It's called Kuwait Opera House.
Okay.
And this was in 2005 or 6. So that nice building was not there.
It was
Yeah, I was going to say, it didn't exist back
No.
then.
And, you know, I was driving back from south, you know, the chalet, and I was listening to Mudakkarat Bahar, you know, the sailor's memoirs, and it struck me like, this is beautiful, and it tells a very, you know, beautiful story that needs to be told globally. And what better medium than having an opera about it? And then it started to snowball in my head, like, why we don't have an opera house that we can like do these shows at this level? And then it started to formulate, well, what if we can actually show these shows outside, you know, in Europe, you know? And then I can hear the whole episode in my head. And I called Ali on the spot and I said, look, I need to see you right away. I have this idea. and we start recording, and exactly what I said. I see a vision where we have an opera house where we can lead the first show doing the sailor's memoirs, and I laid down everything, and I put clips in the show, in Dira Chat, clips from the songs, the famous song from Shad al-Khalij, you know, the famous clips there. And it was a huge hit. Like everyone was, I had someone was in tears. He said, I never actually listened to the words until you explain them to me. And I was in tears. It was like so moving. And when this vision came into reality, and the first show in the opera house was Sailor's Memoir, or Memoirs of Sailor.
What was it?
Yes. People were calling me, congratulating me after all these years, like,
Yeah.
your vision came true. Did they talk to you? Did they, because this is exactly what you said. It happens, get play up. And honestly, when I went to that show and I was walking and I felt so proud, and I felt like I have a hand in it. Maybe I'm sure I
Maybe
didn't, not exactly, but inside of me, I felt like I have a hand in it. I'm part of this. I'm not sure if the creators have listened to my show, but I felt so proud at that moment. That's definitely one of my favorite episodes. I have more, but this is like quite special to me.
It's a very special kind of episode.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we went through a lot of the beautiful thing about podcasting, because we are going to go to the second part of this episode, that we are going to focus on a lot of the challenges and the hard parts of the podcasting world. But first, we do have to take a very quick break. And we are back, dear viewers, with Musaad AlHaddad, and I want to first talk to you about, going into the challenges of making a podcast, especially in a time when it was an unknown territory, right? I don't think you even could Google a lot of the things that go into making a podcast, because a lot of people everywhere were in the same position. So let's talk about the challenges. Like, what did you face?
Well, the first challenge was you compete for people's attention. Okay. They can watch TV, they can listen to radio. That's a big one. They listen to radio and mostly songs. For them to say stop and listen to what I have to say is a big challenge. Second, it wasn't easy to listen to you because we didn't have these nice apps and this nice internet speed and all of that. It was 3G, and you had to go on your website, on your browser, and open a blog, and then scroll to the episode, and then hit the audio feed so that it plays. And if you get interrupted by a call, you have to do everything again. It was so challenging to get the audience to reach out to you. We had a lot of loyal audience, but that's always the biggest challenge. And the other thing is we don't have notification at the time. So people have to regularly check if there's a new episode. I have no way of telling you. I didn't have that nice bell telling you that, we have something new come up. Nothing. We didn't have a promotional channel like Instagram where I say, check out, a new episode is out right now. Nothing. So that by itself, but the other half was even harder, is that when you listen to me, I didn't know you were listening. There's no like button. I didn't know. There's no views count, okay? I didn't know, that there's a lot of people listening. I knew after I stopped, because when I run into people, it's like, well, why did you stop? Because I didn't know you were listening. That's why I stopped. So, so we had a lot of passion to continue for 100 episodes, because we definitely did not have the break or the push to keep going. It's like running through mud. It was really hard because you're putting your soul into this, and everything was hard. So there was a lot, but getting the attention of the audience was definitely a big one. We have some association with the I forgot the name of the body, but basically the student union for those who study in the US, and we made 4 episodes especially for them.
Amazing.
And they helped us tell the students that there are 4 episodes for you guys, and it was really thrilling hearing about, some people say it to me that, look, I saved like 4 episodes for the road, and you were my buddy throughout, my road trip. So it was really nice. I try to for them, I try to have a catchy titles so that they go, hi, I want to check out this episode. What do you mean by that? So I always try to, similar to YouTube right now, when they have, those thumbnails that, with a catchy title that makes you click, the same idea, but again, was primitive time. So
I know it was very much a different era.
Yeah.
And since you didn't know when people were watching, how did the people in the community or people react to you even making the podcast?
Well, it actually was spreading well. The
Yeah.
problem is that we didn't know. You know, people were telling other people about it.
But not you.
Listen, but we didn't know. We didn't know. Again, it just communication was not like that. There was no WhatsApp at the time, you know? So we didn't know. So we were sending out, you know, this work, these episodes, and we don't know. And my only feedback that I was, you know, receiving was from my small circle around me, like my family and friends that knows me. And they called me and said, like, I really enjoy this, or what about this, what about that? But that's the only thing we didn't know. And people start to get to know us as we went on because, you know, people will know that you're my friend, and they will tell your friend that, you know, he's doing a good job. But by then we stopped because so that lack of feedback was just a big problem for us.
So would you say the lack of feedback was the main reason why you stopped, or were there any other reasons that made you, you know, put a hold on AlHaddad?
That would be it. That would be the lack, because we didn't have something to reinforce success that makes you keep going. And again, there's no, keep in mind, if you want to write a comment, either you have to pull over and open that website and actually type in something, or do it when you get home on the computer, and, you know, have that zeal that I really want to leave a comment. So you end up with, if you're like, you're doing a good job, you have 5 comments. That's just amazing. You made my day, you know, 5 comments. So just imagine right now, if you have an Instagram account, and I somehow removed the account for your followers, and I removed the like button, and I removed the views, and I give you just 2-3 comments, one-liner.
Nobody's going to post
That's it.
anything.
How long you will continue to post?
Yeah, you probably will give up after.
Exactly. And this is only a snap. Imagine recording, researching, and doing all of that. And this is what you have to be content with. So I would say the lack of feedback was the Achilles heel. Yeah.
Well, it is a different era now with all of social media at your fingertips. So do you think you'd ever bring Dira Chat back?
Well, there's a nice James Bond movie. Well, it's not nice, but I like the title, Never Say Never.
Never say never, yeah.
But having said that, personally, I'm in a different space right now. At the time, we had a lot to talk about. We understand the pulse. Right now, there is, the number of podcasts is exponentially growing. It's a different speciality, so people are lean toward a specialized podcast, and that dictates what you want to say. Because if you're going on a specialized podcast, then you need to do a lot of research, which require probably a team behind you, so that you can say something worth listening to. If you want to do it short, then that means your episode is short. Then you have to rely on the frequency.
Yeah.
But that by itself requires commitment a lot. So it's just a different time right now. So we talked, me and Ali, about doing like an anniversary episode.
That'd be cool.
Something like that. We're both work for ourselves right now. So also time is not as is scarce right now, not as available like before. Yeah. So there is a lot going on. But if there is something I'd like to do, I'd like to repost all the episodes. Right now there are a few on the smartphones. If you have a podcast app, I think I uploaded a few, maybe 15 or 20 episodes, and I have a few on YouTube. But maybe in a short-term vision, I'd like to upload all the episodes. Now it's funny, when I listen to them, some of them still really relate, and some of them just absolutely from a different planet right now. It's like way old. Doesn't apply anymore. But the essence of the ideas still apply. Like we talked about, maybe going on a private business. Now, the challenges that we talked about right now maybe do not apply right now, but the concept of going into a private business is still valid. Yeah. So the soul is there and the essence is still work. But some of the subject do not relate. And some of them still dead on relate to our time right now. Yeah. Really. For example, we talked this episode about smart tools. Now, at the time, smart tools was using a smartphone. Right now, it's AI.
Yeah.
But
True.
the idea of smart tools still apply, use smart tools so that you don't need a lot of employees to help you with your business. So that's one of the idea. And one of the iconic episodes that a lot of people were surprised with was about the Arabian horse, because I was into breeding horses, and I did a lot of research about that, and people were amazed about this world of the Arabian horse, and the attitude of the horses and all that. So that still applies now, and when people listen to that, they go like, "This was really a good episode." Yeah, well, thanks. Now I know.
I think that you should definitely upload all your old episodes. I think you'd be very surprised at the feedback you'd probably get now.
Yeah.
A lot of people love seeing stuff from different generations or eras, especially stuff that started things. What do you think, Abdullah?
Yeah, honestly, especially now, because podcasting has grown, like I said before, so big. Like we've seen the last, like for example, United States presidency, all of the nominees went on podcasts instead
Did
of
they?
instead of regular news stuff.
Yeah, true.
They went
Yes.
to podcast.
Yes, absolutely.
Podcast, yeah.
Absolutely.
They became the main proponents, of the discourse, the talking conversation between people.
True.
So now I think this is the right time, especially because here locally, it's not as big, but it's also not as small. Locally, it's kind of like the early stages of, striking when the iron's hot. We're
Right.
all like, my friend just started listening to podcasts now. They're like, I'm telling them this has been going for 10 years, but it's such a very thriving market here in Kuwait.
Well, it is an idea. I mean, definitely I appreciate that. I don't see why not. But you're right. One of the things that make podcast interesting is that some people listen to you not necessarily for what you have to say, but they sort of friend you, like they know how you speak and they like your attitude. And so when they listen to you, they're sort of visiting a friend. So that's one of the things that I appreciate about podcasting, because you start knowing this host and his way. And we that's one of the tiny feedback that I received, at least from my small circle at the time. A lot of people really liked my Ali co-host because he was funny, he was telling jokes and all that. And a lot of people's like I cannot wait until he finished to listen to you. So, we have fans either way, but they sort of treat us like friends. So that's something worthy of me trying to upload the episodes again. And I'm really interested to see the impact now that I have that feedback tools, the like button and the views. I'll be really interested to see how it will do. But I don't know. It's worth considering, definitely. Yeah.
And I think that's very well put, Musaad. And I do want to thank you for being with us on The Untold. But that was the end of the conversation segment of The Untold. So again, thank you.
Thank you so much. And I hope the story is told now.
I think so.
Thank you.
And with that, dear viewers, we are going to go on a very quick break and we'll come right back after it. So that was all the time we've had with Musaad AlHaddad. Another fun episode.
It was amazing to talk to him. The way that he described beginning the experience and what it led to, I think that it's a really, really amazing way for people to engage with local content.
Right.
And even the fact that he was able to take mundane, everyday ideas and turn them into topics for discussion, that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, and one of the funny things that he said, and I believe he didn't go into a lot of detail, but he was talking, off camera. He said that when we first started, we would go in the cars, we would park them in mall parkings because they were quiet, and then we would record the podcast there, and people would find us awkward because we're just talking in the car. But that's just the guerrilla kind of things they had to overcome back in the day.
I think so. I think if you told that to people in the younger generation who were before even video and everything, the ones who are like little children now, they would not be able to grasp such a concept.
Yeah. And Musaad was talking about how they were putting the videos on blogs. They had people go to comment on it. And for a lot of the younger audiences are going to be like, what, that's 50 years ago. But no, it was like 10, 15 years ago. But that's just how fast technology advanced. And with that being said, that's the end of today's episode of The Untold.
And I hope that Musaad brings back the chat, or at least uploads his old videos so that we can all enjoy them again. Thank you.